Welcome back. We have the forensic anthropologist on the stand talking about bones belonging to Krista Halderson that she analyzed. She was just saying during the break that some of the cuts were consistent with that from a rip saw. Let's go back in live.
Bow saws or pruning saws or sometimes keyhole saws, depending on the brand.
Talk to me about blade progress and the cutting stroke.
So in this case, you're looking at kind of the medial view of that bone. So remember, I put it back together, and we are able, so we're looking kind of the inside, almost by your knee. And you can see the red arrow is the one that gives you the blade progress. So the bone was actually cut from the inside all the way to the outside. So that's how the cut actually was made. The cutting stroke, or the blade, actually was cutting through the front. So that cutting motion was from front to back.
Were you able to determine teeth per inch for this cut?
So again, we look under the microscope, and we had about 12 teeth per inch on average on the striations in those dips and grooves. Again, the striations were indicative of a reciprocating motion in different anatomical planes. Again, we're looking for that. We're seeing that inconsistent cut throughout.
And the blade set width?
Yeah, in this case, we had a really defined floor. In this case, it was very flat bottom. It was squared. You can see it over there on the L, which is indicative, again, of that rip saw. And then it was also able to give me information about the blade set.
So we talked about those two questions, which is Doe and Krista the same person? And then we're going to talk about the tools. But starting with Doe and Krista, what are we looking at there?
So we're comparing. So what I try to do is to compare each element, right? So I know I have two femora, right? So in this case, what I did is I put them together just to pretty much try to understand the shape and the size, right? Aside from that, I try to take measurements. In this case, I was a little bit, I was not able to take a lot of measurements because I'm missing the top part. And most of the measurements that we do take involve that top part. So I was able to measure the bottoms, right? So pretty much the distance from that area, that kind of wider area that you have, that's where your knee kind of forms. So I was able to measure that, and that the right one gave me about 74 millimeters, and the left one gave me 73 millimeters.
Tell us about this slide.
So we're looking here at the left tibia. So pretty much your lower leg. So we're looking at that lower end of the tibia that is very close to forming your ankle. And here you can see multiple false starts. The left tibia exhibits at least 6 cut marks that are consistent with false starts.
Sure. And this is a more close-up view of that?
Yes. Again, these were quite deep, so it gives me a lot of information. So we wanted to look at them under the microscope. And under the microscope, we were able to see, again, a blade set width of about 0.01. And again, those were flat bottom, and they were squared. The walls were squared, so that is indicative of a rip saw.
Okay. And here you had to determine blade progress and cutting stroke, of course.
Yeah, so again, we're looking at the whole bone, the whole lower left leg. The red arrow, which is indicative of the blade progress, so it seems like this bone was cut from front to back. And then the cutting stroke of how that knife went through, how that saw went through, it went through the anterior, so the front of it, and it kind of went down to medial. So it went from front to side a little bit. So it was almost in an angle.
Okay. And lastly, when it comes to at least the measurements, you had to determine teeth per inch. And here we have maybe an overall view and then a microscopic view? That
is correct. Okay. So here we're looking again at those grooves and those dips, and we have about 5.6 to 4.8 teeth per inch.
Okay. So now we're just going to compare essentially the Krista to Doe in almost like a puzzle-like fashion. Okay?
Yeah.
Tell me what you're doing there.
So I'm pretty much trying to compare, and again, in this case, I'm not just looking at the shape and the size and the measurements, but I'm also trying to see if it actually fits together, right? So if they can join. So in this case, we have the distal end, right, that ankle part of Doe, and then we have what we already know and was positively identified as Krista. And as you can see on the photos, it actually conjoins fairly well. So obviously, we were able to also take some measurements and look at the morphological, overview, the size and the shape, and it was a close match.
And here's perhaps a table comparing them.
Yes, so these are all the measurements that I was able to take. These are standard measurements that we use whenever we are trying to identify someone. And these are specified for the tibia and the fibula. And as you can see, most of the measurements are quite similar, right? In addition to that, you want to look at the overall shape and size of the bone, right? So that's why we want to put it all together in one image so that you guys can see next to a scale how similar they are.
Sure. And so next we have a slide about the left fibula.
Yes, so here the left fibula, again, we do have one false start located just below the initial corner of the curve.
Right. And here we have blade progress and cutting stroke again. Just briefly describe that.
Yeah, pretty much very similar to the tibia, right? It's next to the tibia. So it was cut from front to back, and the cutting stroke was pretty much entering through the inside and exiting through the outside.
Okay. And then the teeth per inch.
The teeth per inch in this case was about 11.1 teeth per inch. And again, we go back to its non-uniform straight striations. It's a reciprocating action with a straight blade.
And then before we get to the summary, here just is a comparison at a different end or a different view, correct?
Yes, so we just wanted to compare, right, that Doe, that little piece of bone that we found that makes your ankle, and we wanted to compare it and see, and then you can see here, it actually matches fairly well.
Sure. I think I asked this before with Mr. Halderson, but as to Doe and Krista, before we get to the summary, is all of these cuts, from your estimation, were made with hand saws, not power saws, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. There were two saws in here found near Bart Halderson, not Krista Halderson, but you use those at least in considering making a table regarding which saws were possibly used to cut Krista Halderson's legs.
That is correct.
All right. And we're looking at the table there?
Yes.
All right.
So it's a very similar table to the other one.
Sure. Is it your opinion that those two saws on this slide, the all-way saw and the broken hacksaw, should they be ruled out as possibly the saws that were used to dismember Krista's legs?
They should not be ruled out.
Tell us about this slide.
So pretty much in terms of trying to identify the other set of remains that we had as Doe. So in this case, as I mentioned, they were able to identify one set of human remains as Krista Halderson via DNA. The other set of remains, the tissue was quite mummified, so we were not able to really obtain DNA out of that second set of remains.
Tissue so mummified that DNA was unable to be obtained from it. We're going to step aside for a quick break. We're back into the courtroom with more of this testimony next.